The stars above Earth had always been quiet. For thousands of years, humans looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built telescopes. They sent radio signals into the darkness. They dreamed of meeting other beings from distant worlds. But when the answer finally came, it was not what anyone expected. Admiral stood on the command deck of her flagship, the Iron Flame. She was tall for a Draconian, with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian. Her yellow eyes watched the blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Behind her ship, 3,000 warships moved in perfect formation. The Draconian Armada had never lost a battle. They had conquered 47 worlds. They had made entire species bow before them. Earth would be number 48. "Admiral," said her second officer, a young male named, "we are entering the planet's communication range. Should I send the standard message?" Nodded slowly. "Yes, let them know what is coming. Give them 1 hour to surrender." Press the controls. The message went out across all frequencies. It was simple and direct. The Draconians did not believe in long speeches. They believed in power. "Attention, primitive species of Earth. This is Admiral of the Draconian Armada. Your planet now belongs to the Draconian Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender all weapons and submit to our rule. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities one by one until you obey. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." On Earth, the message reached every television, every radio, every phone. People stopped in the streets and looked up. They saw the sky filling with ships. Thousands of dark shapes blocked out the sun. Children cried. Adults screamed. Governments called emergency meetings. The world had changed in an instant. In a military base deep underground, General Han received the message. He was an old soldier with gray hair and calm eyes. He had fought in many wars. He had seen terrible things, but he had never seen anything like this. The screens around him showed images from satellites. The alien fleet was massive. It stretched across the sky like a metal cloud. "Sir," said a young officer named, "what do we do? Their technology is beyond anything we have. Our weapons might not even scratch their ships." Han looked at the screens for a long moment. He thought about his family. He thought about his country. He thought about every human being on the planet. Then he smiled. It was a strange smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. "Send a response," he said quietly. Looked confused. "Sir, what should I say?" Han leaned back in his chair. "1 word, just 1 word." "What word, sir?" "No." The message went up to the Draconian flagship. Admiral read it on her screen. She blinked her yellow eyes. She read it again. She had conquered dozens of worlds. She had received many responses to her demands. Some species begged for mercy. Some tried to negotiate. Some sent long messages full of fear and desperation. But no one had ever sent just 1 word. No one had ever simply said no. "Is this a joke?" she asked. Shook his head. "I do not understand it either, Admiral. Perhaps they do not realize the danger they face." Felt something she had not felt in a long time. She was not sure what it was. It was not fear exactly. It was more like curiosity mixed with something else, something uncomfortable. "Scan their planet," she ordered. "Tell me about these humans." The scanners worked quickly. Data filled the screens. Read through it and his face changed. He looked troubled. "Admiral, this is strange. These humans are a young species. They have only had space travel for a short time. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours. But what? Their history, Admiral, it is filled with war. They have been fighting each other for their entire existence. They have weapons that can destroy their own cities. They have killed millions of their own kind. And there is something else." Leaned forward. "Tell me." "They seem to enjoy it, Admiral. Their entertainment is full of violence. Their stories celebrate warriors and battles. They train their young to fight almost from birth. And when they face danger, they do not run. They fight harder." Admiral was quiet for a moment. On 47 worlds she had met many species. Some were peaceful, some were violent, but all of them had one thing in common. They wanted to survive. When they saw a force stronger than themselves, they submitted. It was the logical thing to do. But these humans had looked at 3,000 warships and said one word: no. It does not matter, said finally. They are still primitive. Begin the invasion. We will teach them the price of defiance. The Draconian ships moved toward Earth. Landing craft launched from the larger vessels. Thousands of Draconian soldiers prepared for battle. They had done this many times before. They expected easy victory. On Earth, General Han watched the ships descend. Around him, officers shouted orders. Soldiers ran to their positions. The whole planet was preparing for war, but Han remained calm. He picked up his phone and made a call. "This is General Han," he said. "Begin Operation Welcome." Deep in the mountains, something woke up. In the oceans, something moved. Across every continent, humans stopped being afraid and started being something else. Something the Draconians had never encountered before. The first Draconian landing craft touched down in an empty field. The soldiers marched out with their weapons ready. They expected to find terrified humans hiding in their homes. Instead, they found nothing. The fields were empty. The cities were silent. It was as if the entire population had vanished. "Where are they?" asked a Draconian soldier. His commander looked around nervously. "Search the area. They must be hiding." They searched. They found nothing. And then, as the sun began to set, they heard something. It was a sound they did not recognize. It was coming from everywhere at once. From the trees, from the buildings, from the ground itself. It was the sound of humans laughing. Admiral received reports from the surface. Her soldiers had landed successfully, but something was wrong. They could not find anyone to conquer, and they kept hearing strange sounds. Laughter, singing, whispers in the darkness. "What is happening down there?" she demanded. No one could answer her, and then the first ship went dark. The first ship to go silent was a small patrol vessel called the Night Blade. One moment it was sending normal reports. The next moment, nothing. Admiral stared at her screen and waited. Perhaps it was a technical problem. Perhaps the ship had landed in a place with poor signal. She had seen such things before. But then the second ship went silent, and the third, and the fourth. Admiral said, his voice shaking slightly. "We have lost contact with 17 vessels in the past hour. All of them were on the surface." Felt that strange feeling again, that uncomfortable sensation in her chest. She pushed it away. She was a Draconian admiral. She had conquered worlds. She did not feel fear. "Send more troops," she ordered, "and get me visual contact with the surface." The screens flickered. Images appeared, but they made no sense. The cameras showed Draconian soldiers walking through empty streets. They looked confused. They kept turning around as if they heard something behind them. But there was nothing there, just shadows and silence. Then one soldier stopped walking. He looked up at something off-screen. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened. And then the feed went black. "What was that?" demanded. "What did he see?" No one answered. No one knew. On the surface of Earth, the Draconian soldiers were learning something new. They were learning that darkness was not empty. They were learning that silence was not safe. They were learning that humans did not fight like other species. A squad of 20 Draconians moved through a human city. The buildings were tall and made of glass and metal. Everything looked advanced for such a primitive world. The soldiers kept their weapons ready. They had been trained for combat. They were not afraid. The squad leader, a female named Myra, stopped at a crossroads. She looked left. She looked right. Both streets were empty, but she could feel something. It was like being watched by 1,000 eyes she could not see. "Stay close," she ordered her soldiers. "Move in formation." They moved slowly down the left street. Their boots made loud sounds on the ground. The sounds echoed off the buildings. It was the only noise in the entire city. Then one soldier at the back of the group made a small sound. Myra turned around. He was gone. His weapon lay on the ground. There was no blood, no sign of struggle. He had simply vanished. What? Myra started to say. Another soldier disappeared, then another. They made no sounds. They did not scream. One moment they were there. The next moment they were not. Run, Myra shouted. The remaining soldiers ran, but it did not help. One by one they vanished into the shadows. Myra ran faster than she had ever run before. Her heart pounded in her chest. She could hear footsteps behind her, many footsteps, but when she looked back she saw nothing. She ran into a building and slammed the door. She was alone now. All her soldiers were gone. She pressed herself against a wall and tried to breathe. Her hands were shaking. Her scales had turned pale with terror. And then she heard it, a voice, a human voice. It was soft and calm. It came from the darkness in front of her. "Hello," the voice said. "My name is, what is your name?" Myra raised her weapon. "Stay back, I will shoot." A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a human female. She was small, smaller than Myra. She wore simple clothes. She had no weapon. She was smiling. "You should not have come here," said softly. "This is our home. We do not like visitors." Myra pulled the trigger. The weapon fired, but the human moved. She moved faster than any creature Myra had ever seen. One moment she was in front of the weapon. The next moment she was beside Myra. The next moment she was behind her. Myra tried to turn. She tried to fight, but something hit the back of her head and everything went dark. On the flagship, Admiral watched the reports come in. Ship after ship went silent. Soldier after soldier disappeared. The invasion that should have taken hours was turning into a nightmare. "How is this possible?" she whispered. Stood beside her, his face pale. "Admiral, I have analyzed the data. The humans are not using advanced weapons. They are not using weapons at all." "Then how are they defeating our soldiers?" "They are using themselves, Admiral, their bodies, their hands. They are hunting our soldiers like animals hunt prey." Could not believe it. The Draconians had advanced armor. They had powerful weapons. They were trained warriors, and they were being defeated by creatures who fought with their bare hands. "This is impossible," she said. "There is more," continued. "The humans we are facing are not their soldiers. They are ordinary citizens, farmers, workers, children." Felt cold, children. "Yes, Admiral, their children are participating in the defense. They seem to treat this like a game. They are laughing." 48 hours had passed since the invasion began. Admiral had lost contact with 2/3 of her ground forces. The ships that had landed on Earth's surface were silent. The soldiers she had sent to investigate never returned. And through it all, she kept hearing that sound. That terrible sound. Humans laughing. On the third day, made a decision. She would end this. She would use the fleet's main weapons to destroy human cities from orbit. If she could not conquer them, she would eliminate them. "Target the largest city," she ordered. "Fire when ready." Hesitated. "Admiral, there are still Draconian soldiers down there. If we fire." "They are already dead," said coldly. "Fire." The flagship's weapons charged. Energy built up in the massive cannons. This blast would destroy everything within 100 miles. The humans would learn the price of resistance. But before the weapons could fire, the ship shook. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. "What is happening?" shouted. Looked at his screens in disbelief. "Admiral, there are humans on the ship." "What? How?" "I do not know, but they are inside the hull. They are moving toward the reactor." Ran to the window. She looked out at her fleet, and she saw something that made her blood freeze. Small figures were crawling on the outside of her ships, dozens of them, hundreds of them. They had no spacesuits. They had no breathing equipment. They were climbing on the ships in the cold vacuum of space, and they were smiling. "That is impossible," breathed. Nothing can survive in space without protection. But the humans did not seem to know that, or perhaps they simply did not care. They crawled across the ships like insects. They found every weak point, every door, every hatch, and they got inside. The last message from the Draconian Armada was sent 72 hours after they arrived at Earth. It was a distress signal. It contained only screaming, then static, then silence. The 3,000 ships of the Draconian Armada had vanished, not destroyed, not defeated, vanished, as if they had never existed at all. On Earth, General Han stood outside and looked up at the clear sky. The alien ships were gone. The invasion was over. Beside him, a young woman named cleaned blood from her hands. "What should we do with the prisoners?" she asked. Han thought for a moment. "Treat them well, feed them, let them see how we live." Looked confused. "Why?" Han smiled that strange smile again. "Because I want them to go home someday. I want them to tell their people what happened here. I want the whole galaxy to know." "Know what, General?" Han looked up at the stars. His eyes were bright with something that might have been joy, or hunger, or both. "That humanity is awake, and we are very, very bored." The Galactic Council met in a great hall on the planet Nexus Prime. It was the center of civilization. Representatives from 200 species gathered there to discuss matters of importance. They made laws. They formed alliances. They decided the fate of worlds. Ambassador had traveled a long way to reach this place. She was the first human to stand in this hall. She was small compared to most of the alien species around her. Her skin was soft. Her body was fragile. She had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. The other ambassadors looked at her with curiosity and pity. How had such a weak creature survived in the universe? The High Speaker, an ancient being named Elder, opened the session. He was a tall creature with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with blue light. He had led the council for 300 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He believed he understood how the universe worked. "We are gathered today to discuss the disappearance of the Draconian Armada," Elder announced. 3,000 ships, 500,000 soldiers. They entered the territory of a primitive world called Earth. They have not been heard from since. Whispers filled the hall. The Draconian Armada was famous throughout the galaxy. They were conquerors. They were unstoppable. How could they simply disappear? Ambassador stepped forward. "Honored council members, I am here to explain what happened, and to warn you." Elder looked down at her with mild interest. "Warn us about what, little human?" "About my people," said. "About what we are capable of." Laughter rippled through the hall. A large being with red skin and tusks spoke up. He was ambassador from the warrior clans. His people were known for their strength and violence. "You," laughed. "Your species is barely space-capable. You have no empire, no fleet, no advanced weapons. The Draconians probably destroyed your world and moved on. Perhaps they found better targets." Remained calm. "The Draconians did not destroy Earth. We destroyed them." More laughter, louder this time. Even Elder smiled, though his eyes showed something like pity. "Child," he said gently, "the Draconians had technology far beyond yours. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand anything. How could your primitive species possibly defeat them?" Reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. "I have brought evidence, recordings from Draconian ships, data from their final transmissions. I ask the council to watch." Elder waved his hand. "Very well, show us this evidence." The lights dimmed. A holographic screen appeared in the center of the hall. The recording began to play. It showed the inside of a Draconian ship. Soldiers ran through corridors. They were screaming. Their weapons fired at shadows, but the shadows moved too fast. The shadows had human faces. A Draconian soldier fell. A human stood over him. The human was smiling. It was a kind smile, a gentle smile. but there was something in that smile that made the watchers feel cold. "Hello," the human said to the fallen soldier. "Do not worry, it will be quick." The recording continued. It showed things that made even the hardened warriors of the galaxy look away. It showed humans tearing through metal walls with their bare hands. It showed humans laughing as plasma burns healed on their skin. It showed humans dancing through clouds of poison gas as if it were nothing but fog. One recording showed a Draconian commander on his knees. He was begging. In front of him stood a human child, a little girl with flowers in her hair. "Please," the commander begged. "Please, I surrender, I will do anything." The little girl tilted her head. "But we are having so much fun," she said. "Why would you want to stop?" The recording ended. The lights came back on. The hall was silent. Ambassador looked at the council. "Now do you understand?" Elder cleared his throat. His hands were shaking slightly, but he hid it well. "This is impressive, but surely this was a unique situation. The Draconians were not prepared. They underestimated your world." "They did," agreed. "Everyone underestimates us. That is why I am here, to make sure the council does not make the same mistake." Ambassador stood up. His face was troubled, but his pride would not let him show fear. "These recordings could be fake, created by your people to frighten us. I do not believe a weak species like humans could defeat the Draconians." "Then send someone to Earth," said quietly. "See for yourself what remains of the Armada." "Perhaps we will," replied. "But I think we will find that the Draconians simply left. They probably decided your worthless planet was not worth conquering." Other council members nodded. They wanted to believe this. They needed to believe this, because the alternative was too frightening to consider. Elder raised his hand for silence. "The council has reviewed the evidence. We conclude that the disappearance of the Draconian Armada remains unexplained. However, we do not believe that the humans pose a significant threat to the greater galaxy." His eyes widened. "Elder, please listen to me. My people are not like other species. We evolved on a death world. Our planet tried to kill us every day. We survived by becoming more dangerous than anything that hunted us. We are." "Enough," Elder interrupted. "The council has made its decision. The human species will be classified as level 3, primitive and non-threatening. Your warning has been noted and dismissed." Ambassador stood very still. Her hands were trembling, but not with fear. She looked around the hall at all the powerful beings who refused to listen. She saw their pride, their arrogance, their certainty that they understood the universe. "You are making a terrible mistake," she said softly. Laughed again. "Go home, little human. Tell your people to stay on their tiny world. The galaxy has no need for weaklings like you." Turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, she stopped. She looked back at the council one last time. "I tried to warn you," she said. "I tried to give you a chance to prepare, to understand what is coming, but you would not listen. You looked at us and saw weakness. You saw soft skin and small bodies and no claws." She paused. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "But you did not see what lives inside us. You did not see the darkness we carry, the hunger, the joy we feel when we hunt. The Draconians saw it. In their final moments they understood, and someday you will understand too." She walked out of the hall. The doors closed behind her. Elder laughed nervously. A dramatic species, these humans, full of emotion and empty threats. The other council members agreed. They laughed and joked about the strange little creature who had tried to frighten them. They went back to their normal business. They forgot about Earth. They forgot about the warning. But some of them would remember Ambassador's words. Years later, when the truth finally came out, they would remember her trembling hands and her quiet voice. They would remember how she tried to save them. And they would wish they had listened. On her ship flying away from Nexus Prime, Ambassador sat alone in her cabin. She looked out the window at the stars. Tears ran down her face. She had tried. She had really tried to warn them, but they would not listen. And now, sooner or later, her people would grow restless. They would look up at those stars and wonder what else was out there. They would want to explore, to meet new species, to play new games. Closed her eyes and whispered a prayer for the galaxy, because humanity was awake. Humanity was curious. And when humans got curious, nothing in the universe was safe. 5 years passed after the Council dismissed Ambassador's warning. Life in the galaxy continued as normal. Empires traded, wars were fought and won, new species were discovered, and the disappearance of the Draconian Armada became just another mystery. People stopped talking about it. People forgot. But not everyone forgot. Commander never forgot. Was a scout pilot for the Galactic Survey Corps. His job was to explore unknown regions of space and report what he found. He was good at his job. He had mapped 300 star systems. He had discovered 12 new species. He was careful, patient, and thorough. When his superiors asked him to investigate the area around Earth, he accepted without hesitation. Something had happened there, something strange, and wanted to know what it was. His ship, a small, fast vessel called the Blue Wing, entered the solar system on a quiet morning, looked at his sensors and frowned. The readings made no sense. There should be debris, he muttered to himself. 3,000 ships do not just vanish. But the space around Earth was clean. No wreckage, no radiation, no signs of battle. It was as if the Draconian Armada had never existed. Moved closer to the planet, he activated his long-range scanners. Earth looked peaceful, blue oceans, green land, white clouds, a beautiful world. He could see cities on the surface, signs of civilization, nothing threatening. Then his sensors detected something in orbit around Earth's moon. He adjusted course to investigate. What he found made his blood run cold. Ships, thousands of ships, Draconian ships. They floated in the darkness, arranged in perfect rows. They looked almost normal from a distance, but as moved closer, he saw the truth. Every ship was damaged, but not by weapons. The hulls were torn open from the inside. Metal was twisted and bent as if something had forced its way through solid walls. Windows were shattered, doors were ripped from their frames, and everywhere, scratched into the metal surfaces, were words. Human words. Welcome to Earth. Thanks for the ships. Come back soon. Felt sick. He had seen battle damage before. He had seen ships destroyed by plasma cannons and nuclear weapons and antimatter bombs, but he had never seen anything like this. These ships had not been destroyed by weapons. They had been destroyed by hands, by fingers, by things that could tear metal like paper. He flew closer to the largest ship, the flagship Iron Flame. Its great cannon was silent and dark. Its proud symbol had been scratched out. In its place, someone had drawn a simple picture, a smiling human face. Activated his ship's recording systems. The galaxy needed to see this. He maneuvered through the debris field, everything, torn armor, broken weapons, empty corridors. Then he found the bodies. The Draconian soldiers were still in their ships, thousands of them. They had not been burned or blasted. They had been killed by hand, broken necks, crushed skulls, torn limbs, and on every face saw the same expression, terror, pure, absolute terror. But the bodies were not the worst part. The worst part was how they were arranged. In the flagship's main hall, the Draconian officers had been positioned around a long table. They sat in chairs, their dead hands placed in front of them. In the center of the table was a meal, human food, bread and meat and vegetables, as if someone had invited them to dinner. At the head of the table sat Admiral. Her yellow eyes were still open. A note was pinned to her uniform, read it with shaking hands. Dear Admiral, thank you for visiting Earth. We enjoyed meeting your soldiers. They were very polite guests. We hope you like the meal we prepared. It is called a barbecue. Humans eat this when we celebrate, and we had much to celebrate. Please come again sometime. We get lonely. Signed, your friends on Earth. Stumbled backward. He could not breathe. He could not think. These humans had not just defeated the Draconians. They had played with them. They had hunted them for sport. And then they had arranged their bodies like dolls at a tea party. What kind of species did something like this? Returned to his ship. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely operate the controls. He set a course away from Earth at maximum speed. He needed to get back to the Council. He needed to show them what he had found. As his ship flew away from Earth, something appeared on his communication screen. A message from the planet below. "Hello, Commander, we saw you visiting the museum. Did you enjoy the exhibit? We worked very hard on it. We hope the Council believes you. We really do, because we are getting bored again. And when humans get bored, we start looking for new games to play. Tell your leaders we said hello, and tell them to start preparing, because someday soon we are going to come visit. It has been so long since we made new friends. Take care, Commander. Safe travels." The message was signed with a drawing, the same smiling face that decorated the Draconian ships. Did not sleep for the entire journey back to Nexus Prime. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those dead Draconians sitting at their table. He saw that smiling face. He heard those words. "We are getting bored." When he finally reached the council chamber, he burst through the doors without waiting for permission. The representatives from 200 species turned to stare at him. Elder rose from his seat, his face showing annoyance. "Commander, this is highly irregular. What is the meaning of this interruption?" Walked to the center of the hall. He was still shaking. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were wild. "I found them," he said. "I found the Draconian Armada." The hall went silent. Elder leaned forward. "Where? What happened to them?" Activated his recording device. The holographic screens around the hall flickered to life. Images appeared. The ships, the bodies, the smiling faces drawn in blood and scratched into metal, the note pinned to Admiral's chest. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one moved. 200 species watched in horror as the truth was finally revealed. "The humans did this," said quietly. "Not with weapons, not with technology, with their bare hands. They tore through 3,000 warships like they were toys. They killed 500,000 soldiers like they were playing a game." He looked at Elder, his voice cracked. "Ambassador tried to warn you. 5 years ago she stood in this very hall and begged you to listen. But you laughed at her. You called her species weak. You called them primitive." Pointed at the images on the screens, at the torn metal and broken bodies and smiling faces. "Does this look primitive to you?" The hall erupted in chaos. Representatives screamed and shouted. Some called for immediate action against Earth. Others called for surrender. Elder tried to restore order, but his voice was drowned out by the noise. And somewhere in the chaos, Ambassador sat very still in his chair. His red face had turned pale. His proud eyes were filled with something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The galaxy had finally learned the truth about humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 7 days. 200 species debated what to do about the human threat. Some wanted to attack. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to pretend the whole thing had never happened. In the end, Elder made the final decision. He stood before the council with tired eyes and trembling hands. He was 300 years old. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had faced threats from every corner of the galaxy, but he had never been more afraid than he was now. "After careful consideration," he announced, "the Council has decided to seal the human sector. All ships are forbidden from approaching within 50 light-years of Earth. All communication with humans is banned. All records of their location will be classified. We will pretend they do not exist." Ambassador stood up. His face was still pale. His voice was hoarse. "Elder, is this wise? If they are as dangerous as Commander says, should we not strike first? Destroy them before they grow stronger?" Elder looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Strike them. With what? The Draconians had 3,000 ships and 500,000 soldiers, the best warriors in the galaxy, and the humans destroyed them without using a single weapon. He paused, his voice dropped. Commander's report included something else, something I did not share with the full council. The humans left a message for us. They said they know where every species in the galaxy lives. They have been watching us for years, studying us, learning about us. The hall went silent. They said that if we leave them alone, they will leave us alone. But if we attack them, if we try to harm them in any way, they will come for us, all of us, every world, every species, every living being. Elder sat down heavily in his chair. So no, Ambassador, we will not strike first. We will seal their sector. We will forget they exist. And we will pray that they forget about us too. The vote was unanimous. The human sector was sealed. Warning beacons were placed around the borders. Ships that approached were turned away. Within a year, most of the galaxy had forgotten about the strange species on the small blue planet. But some remembered, some could not forget. On the planet Nexus Prime, Ambassador received the news of the Council's decision. She sat in her small apartment and read the official document. Her face showed no emotion. A knock came at her door. She opened it to find Commander standing outside. He looked different from the confident pilot he had been before. He looked older, haunted. "May I come in?" he asked. Stepped aside, entered and sat down on a simple chair. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I saw what your people did," finally said. "To the Draconians, I saw the bodies, the ships, the messages." Nodded, "I know." "How can you live with that? How can you be part of a species that does such things?" Was quiet for a moment. She walked to her window and looked out at the alien city. Beings from 100 different worlds walked through the streets below. They had no idea what was watching them from across the stars. "Let me tell you a story," she said. "On Earth, millions of years ago, there were giant lizards called dinosaurs. They ruled the planet. They were the most powerful creatures that had ever lived. Then a rock fell from the sky and killed them all." She turned to look at. But some small creatures survived. Tiny mammals that hid in holes and ate whatever they could find. They were weak. They were prey. Everything hunted them, but they did not give up. They fought. They adapted. They survived. She walked closer too. Her eyes were bright with something he could not name. Those small mammals became humans. We learned that the universe was cruel. We learned that only the strong survive. So we became strong. We became the most dangerous thing on our world. And when there was nothing left to hunt, we hunted each other. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Millions of years of fighting, millions of years of war. We killed each other by the billions. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. And through it all, we kept going. We kept surviving. We kept getting stronger. She smiled. It was a sad smile, a tired smile. The Draconians looked at us and saw soft skin and small bodies. They saw no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. They thought we were weak, but they did not understand. Our weakness is what made us strong. Every day of our existence was a fight for survival. Every moment of our evolution was shaped by death. She placed her hand on shoulder. "We are not monsters, Commander. We are survivors. The universe tried to kill us and we refused to die. The Draconians were not the first to threaten us. They were just the latest. And they learned what everything else learned. Humanity does not run. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity fights." Looked into her eyes. He saw something there, something ancient and wild, something that had looked up at the stars and decided they belonged to it. "What do you want?" he asked. "What does humanity want?" Smile widened. For just a moment, saw the predator behind the ambassador's gentle face. "We want what we have always wanted," she said. "We want to survive. We want to explore. We want to meet new species and see new worlds." She paused. And sometimes, Commander, we want to play. Left the apartment with more questions than answers. He returned to his ship and flew away from Nexus Prime. He never told anyone about his conversation with Ambassador. Some things were too frightening to share. Years passed. The galaxy continued as it always had. Wars were fought. Empires rose and fell. The sealed human sector became just another forbidden zone on the star maps. But sometimes, ships would disappear near the borders. Explorers who got too close would vanish without a trace. And sometimes, in the darkest parts of space, travelers would pick up strange signals. Human music, human laughter, human voices asking the same question over and over. Do you want to play? On Earth, General Han had grown old. His hair was white now. His body was tired, but his eyes were still sharp. He stood on a hill outside his home and looked up at the stars. Beside him stood, no longer young but still smiling, other humans gathered around them, hundreds of them, thousands. They all looked up at the night sky with the same expression: hunger, anticipation, joy. They sealed our sector, Han said. They told the whole galaxy to stay away from us. They were scared, replied, poor things. Han laughed. It was a warm sound, a kind sound, but underneath it was something else, something that made the stars themselves seem to shiver. They think walls can keep us in, he said. They think distance can protect them. They do not understand. He raised his hand toward the sky, toward the billions of stars and the millions of worlds and the countless species that lived among them. We did not crawl out of the mud and claw our way to the stars just to stay home. We did not survive ice ages and plagues and wars and ourselves just to hide on one small planet. The galaxy is out there, waiting, full of wonders, full of dangers, full of new games to play. His voice rang out across the hillside. Every human heard him. Every human felt the same fire burning in their hearts. They wanted to contain us. They wanted to forget us. But we do not forget. We do not stop. We are humanity. We are survivors. We are hunters. We are the children of a death world forged in fire and blood and endless war. He smiled. That same strange smile that had frightened Admiral. That same smile that haunted Commander's dreams. The Council made their choice. Now we make ours. We gave them a chance to know us, to understand us, to be our friends. They chose fear instead. They chose to hide. Han lowered his hand. His smile became gentle, almost tender. So we will wait. We will grow stronger. We will build ships and train our children and prepare for the day when we finally leave our little corner of the galaxy. And when that day comes, when humanity steps out into the stars once more, the Council will learn the truth they tried so hard to ignore. He looked at all the humans gathered on the hillside, at the small blue planet that had created something the universe had never seen before. They will learn that the most dangerous thing in the cosmos is not a weapon or a fleet or an army. It is a species that refuses to give up, a species that turns every obstacle into an opportunity, a species that looks at the impossible and says one word. Every human spoke together. Their voices rose into the night, a single word that echoed through the ages, a single word that defined everything they were and everything they would become. No. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the universe heard them and trembled.